My name is Rebecca, and I am 36 years old. I am a single mother to my two wonderful children, Mia and Noah. To anyone looking in from the outside, I grew up living a dream life in a wealthy family. But behind the gated entrance of our Greenwich estate ran deep, icy currents of favoritism that always flowed toward my older sister, Cassandra. For my entire life, I endured weekly Sunday dinners where my children and I were treated as second-class relatives. But last month, a simple decision about takeout food became the final straw that shattered decades of family pretense. What happened when I finally stood up for us didn't just change our family dynamic, it exposed a devastating secret that left my parents and sister scrambling to maintain their crumbling empire. Before I tell you about that night, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button. If you've ever had to confront toxic family members, you will understand why a simple question about dinner could unravel a lifetime of lies. My parents, William and Grace Harrington, built a formidable fortune in private equity. Our childhood home wasn't a house, it was a compound, a 12-acre property with a main house, a guest house, stables, and tennis courts. But all that opulence came with a price: conditional, performance-based love. From the very beginning, my sister Cassandra was the undisputed golden child. For years my senior, she was the spitting image of our mother, willowy with platinum blonde hair, icy blue eyes, and a smile she could switch on like a lamp to get whatever she wanted. Her ballet recitals were treated like Broadway premieres, requiring mandatory attendance from the entire family and all our household staff. Her mediocre report cards were framed and hung in my father's study as if they were doctoral theses. I, on the other hand, was the practical one. With my father's dark hair and humble brown eyes, I was a constant reminder of the working-class roots my mother had tried so hard to erase. When I graduated valedictorian of my high school class, my mother's only comment was, "Well, it's not like you had Cassandra's social calendar to distract you." There was no party, no special gift. My acceptance to Stanford on a full academic scholarship was met with a sigh from my mother, who said, "All the way in California? Couldn't you have gotten into somewhere local?" It's such a practical choice. The pattern continued into adulthood. Cassandra married Charles Kensington III, a man whose family name was synonymous with old money and trust funds. Their wedding was a society page event that cost more than I would make in a decade as a software engineer. When I married Daniel, a brilliant and kind-hearted civil engineer I met in college, my mother's first question was about a prenuptial agreement, a document she had never once suggested to Cassandra. Cassandra had never held a job, dedicating her life to chairing charity committees and maintaining her figure. My parents bought her and Charles a 5-bedroom brownstone in Manhattan as a wedding gift and covered the property taxes every year. Meanwhile, I built a successful career at a tech startup, proud of the life Daniel and I built together in our modest but happy home in Westchester. 3 years ago, my world fell apart when Daniel was killed by a drunk driver. The grief was a physical pain, a constant ache that never fully subsided. My parents could have offered emotional support, a financial cushion, a place for me and my grieving children to heal. Instead, they offered criticism. "You should never have let him drive that night," my mother had said. "That little car he drove was a death trap. A man with a family should drive something safer." Their lack of compassion solidified a cold, hard truth I had always felt but never acknowledged. Despite the profound loss, I took immense pride in providing a stable, loving home for Mia, now 11, and Noah, now 9. Mia is a budding artist, her room filled with sketches of her father and fantastical creatures. She is empathetic and observant, often sensing my sadness before I show it. Noah is a quiet, curious boy who finds solace in building elaborate Lego structures and reading books about astronomy. Both are unfailingly polite and resilient, qualities their teachers consistently praise. The weekly Sunday dinner tradition at my parents' estate began after we both had children. "It's important for the cousins to know each other," my mother insisted, though these gatherings quickly became a masterclass in favoritism. Cassandra's children, Olivia, 13, and Henry, 10, arrived dripping in designer children's wear, clutching the latest iPhones. They speak over adults, demand specific meals, and break priceless heirlooms without a word of reprimand. My children have learned to be seen and not heard, to compliment the food even if they don't like it, and to quietly help clear the plates, only to be told, "Leave it, Rebecca. Maria will get it. That's what we pay her for." The subtle jabs were a constant fixture. "That's a sturdy sweater, Rebecca. I guess commuting requires practical clothing, or the children look robust. It's nice that public schools have such strong sports programs." I endured it all, swallowing my pride and biting my tongue, telling myself that a connection to their extended family, however flawed, was important for my children. In recent months, the dynamic grew worse. Cassandra had just returned from a month-long wellness retreat in Bali, funded entirely by our parents. Meanwhile, I was working overtime to save for a new car, as mine was on its last legs. Each Sunday, Cassandra would drone on about spiritual awakenings and private yoga sessions while my mother hung on her every word, completely ignoring that my children had never been on a plane. I had learned to tolerate the inequality, but I never could have predicted what would happen that Sunday evening when my mother decided to order takeout. That fateful Sunday began early in our cozy 3-bedroom home. I was woken at 6 a.m. by Mia, who needed help finishing a diorama for her history class. Noah was already at the kitchen table, poring over a book about the solar system. I made chocolate chip pancakes, a small weekend luxury that made our budget-conscious life feel special. "Mom, do you think Grandma will like this?" Mia asked, holding up a beautifully detailed drawing she had made of the family garden. She had spent hours capturing the specific roses my mother prized. "It's gorgeous, sweetheart." "I'm sure she'll love it," I said, though a part of me knew it would be placed in a drawer, unseen, while a far less impressive scribble from Olivia would be prominently displayed on the refrigerator. By noon, we were putting the finishing touches on a peach cobbler to bring for dessert. My parents never expected Cassandra to contribute, but I was raised with the old-fashioned notion that you never arrive empty-handed, even at your parents' home. "Can I add the sugar sprinkle?" Noah asked, carefully measuring the cinnamon. "Of course, buddy." "Just like we practiced," I said, guiding his small hand. Just as we were finishing, I heard a sickening hiss from outside. My heart dropped into my stomach. I ran to the window to see a completely flat tire on my 8-year-old SUV. The cost of a new tire was not in this month's carefully balanced budget. "Everything okay, Mom?" Mia asked, her face etched with concern. "Just a flat tire, honey. Nothing to worry about. Let me call Mr. Evans next door." An hour and $150 later, my kind neighbor had put on the spare donut tire, warning me I couldn't drive on it for long and would need to buy a new tire immediately. This unexpected expense meant I would have to delay signing Noah up for the science club he'd been eagerly awaiting. We were already 40 minutes late when I nervously called my mother. "Rebecca, we expect punctuality." "It's a sign of respect," she said, her voice cold before I could even explain. The stress-induced headache that always preceded these dinners was already throbbing behind my eyes as we pulled up to the imposing iron gates of my parents' estate. The circular driveway was a showroom of luxury vehicles, including a brand-new Porsche Cayenne that I knew belonged to Cassandra. "Wow, and Cassandra got a new car?" Noah whispered as we carefully carried our cobbler to the grand front entrance. "It looks like it," I said neutrally, pushing down the frustration. Her previous car was less than a year old. The massive oak door swung open before we could ring the bell, revealing Elena, my parents' housekeeper for 30 years, whose warm smile was the only genuine welcome we ever received. "They're in the sunroom, Miss Rebecca," she said softly, taking our jackets. "The mood is strained today," she added in a hushed tone, our long-standing code that I should be prepared for trouble. As we walked through the marble-floored foyer, I noticed a set of expensive luggage stacked by the stairs. Before I could wonder about it, my mother's voice cut through the air from the sunroom. "Finally." We were about to send out a search party. My mother sat regally on a silk settee, a glass of Chardonnay in her hand. At 68, Grace Harrington maintained the sharp beauty and impeccable posture of a former debutante, her silver blonde hair perfectly coiffed. "I'm so sorry, Mother. We had a flat tire," I explained, ushering the children forward. We brought dessert. My father didn't look up from his Wall Street journal. Elena, take that to the kitchen, he instructed, his voice dismissive. At 70, William Harrington was still an imposing figure, his custom-tailored suit a second skin. Cassandra lounged on a chaise, scrolling through her phone. Another car problem? Maybe it's time to stop driving that relic, Becky. It's embarrassing. Her children, Olivia and Henry, were glued to new iPad Pros, not even looking up as we entered. Grandma! Grandpa! We're here! Olivia finally squealed, jumping up to hug my parents. Did you get me the new AirPods I wanted? My mother's face instantly transformed into a doting smile. Of course, my darling. They're in the library. Grandpa had them engraved. Mia stepped forward shyly, holding out her beautiful drawing. I made this for you, Grandma. My mother took the paper between two fingers as if it were contaminated. How quaint. Elena, put this with the other children's things. The drawing was handed off without a second glance. I placed a steadying hand on Mia's shoulder as her face fell. It's beautiful, sweetie. Grandma must want to frame it properly later. My mother made a non-committal sound and turned back to Olivia, who was already opening the expensive gift. Noah stood quietly by my side, watching as Henry showed my father a new video game. My father nodded with feigned interest, something he had never shown in Noah's science fair victories. Rebecca, the children seem to have outgrown their clothes again, my mother observed with a critical eye. They grow so fast at that age when they're not in tailored clothing. Before I could respond, Cassandra chimed in. Well, some of us plan our children's wardrobe seasonally, Mother. Not everyone waits until their hems are above their ankles. The casual cruelty took my breath away, but years of practice kept my expression neutral. We're doing just fine, thank you, I said, my voice even. As we settled into the strained conversation, I noticed something was off. Cassandra kept mentioning that her husband, Charles, was away on an indefinite business trip, a phrase she repeated with a strange tension. My father was uncharacteristically distracted, checking his phone constantly. My mother, the consummate hostess, hadn't offered us so much as a glass of water. After 20 minutes of this, my mother suddenly clapped her hands. I'm simply too exhausted from the opera gala last night to have Eduardo cook. We're ordering in. William, be a dear and arrange it. This was unprecedented. In 20 years of Sundays, Eduardo had never missed a dinner. My father nodded, pulling out his Montblanc pen and a leather-bound notepad. Excellent. We'll spare no expense. The children should have whatever their hearts desire. He looked directly at Olivia and Henry as he said this. As Elena passed out drinks, fresh squeezed juice for Cassandra's children, tap water for mine, I felt a gnawing suspicion that this unusual tension was somehow about me. Let's all go to the library to decide, my mother announced, leading the procession to the room with the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and my father's massive mahogany desk. Cassandra's children immediately threw themselves onto a pristine white sofa with their shoes on. My children perched carefully on the edge of two antique armchairs. I sat beside them, already dreading how I would split the inevitable exorbitant bill. My father opened his notepad. Now then, what shall we order? Grace, why don't you ask the children what they would like? My mother turned her radiant smile on Cassandra's children. Olivia, Henry, darlings, what would you like for dinner? Anything in the world. Olivia didn't look up from her iPad. I want truffle pasta from Carbone. And the Caesar salad, but only with white anchovies. And the lemon ricotta cookies for dessert. Henry finally put his game down. I want a double porterhouse from Old Homestead. The one with the gold foil. And loaded mashed potatoes. My father diligently wrote it all down. Excellent choices. We'll need to place 2 separate orders. Cassandra stretched. I'll have the grilled branzino for Maria. and a bottle of their premium mineral water. My mother gave her own order, a complex salad from a place that didn't even have a menu online. As this lavish negotiation continued, my children whispered to each other, their eyes wide. Mia loved fettuccine alfredo, a dish we could never afford at a restaurant. Noah was practically vibrating at the mention of a steak. I smiled at them, thinking that for once, they might get a truly special meal despite the tension. After my father finished writing down my mother's order, an awkward silence descended upon the room. My children looked expectantly at their grandparents, waiting for their turn. I waited too, not wanting to speak out of turn. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. A full minute. Mia, Noah, I prompted gently. What would you two like? Before they could utter a single word, my mother's face transformed into a mask of cold indifference. With a dismissive flick of her wrist, she said, "Your kids can eat the leftover roast chicken in the refrigerator. There's no need to waste good money on restaurant food for them." The words landed like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs. Next to me, I felt Mia flinch and Noah's small hand clutch mine. Before I could form a response, Cassandra let out a derisive snort. "And don't forget, Rebecca, you're covering my meals this week too. Charles is traveling, and I can't possibly stay in that empty penthouse alone. Mother and father said I should stay here, and since they're covering Olivia and Henry, the least you can do is cover mine." My mind reeled. Cover her meals? Stay here? My father cleared his throat, the sound he always made before delivering a verdict. "And don't just sit there looking stunned, Rebecca. Make yourself useful. Go tell Elena to set the table. It's what you're good for, after all. Handling the mundane details." In that moment, 15 years of slights, of condescension, of watching my children be treated as less than, crystallized into a single, sharp point of clarity. The suitcases by the stairs, Cassandra's vague comments about Charles, my father's distraction, it all clicked into place. This wasn't a family dinner, it was an ambush before asking for a favor. Memories flashed before my eyes, last Christmas, when the expensive gifts from Cassandra's family were lavishly praised while the carefully chosen books my children gave their grandparents were barely acknowledged, Noah's 8th birthday, when my parents arrived 2 hours late because they'd been helping Cassandra choose new patio furniture, the constant comments about my modest home and practical career. I had accepted it all, believing I was teaching my children grace and resilience. But looking at their hurt, confused faces, I realized I had been teaching them to accept disrespect. With a calm that surprised me, I reached for my children's hands. "Mia, Noah. We're leaving." My father's head snapped up. "Don't be absurd, Rebecca. Stop overreacting." "No one is leaving," my mother said with an icy smile. "You're always so dramatic. The children can have the chicken. It's perfectly good food." Cassandra rolled her eyes. "Here we go. The martyr routine. Just accept it, Becky. Some people are simply more important than others." I stood my ground, holding my children's hands. "No, Cassandra. In your world, that may be true. Not in mine. Not anymore." My father waved his hand dismissively. "Sit down. This is embarrassing. We have important matters to discuss about the family's finances after dinner." The mention of finances confirmed my suspicion. "I'm sure you do. But they can wait for another time." My mother looked genuinely shocked. "You can't just walk out. What about family loyalty?" The irony was so profound I almost laughed. "Loyalty requires respect, Mother. It goes both ways." I knelt down to my children. "Go get your jackets from Elena, please. We're going to have a special dinner somewhere else tonight." Their eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. "Are you sure, Mom?" Mia whispered. "Grandma looks really angry." "I have never been more sure," I said. "We deserve to be treated with respect." As the children hurried out, Cassandra appeared in the doorway. "You know, they only invited you today because they need your help," she spat, her voice a mix of venom and desperation. "They were going to ask you to let us stay with you. But I told them you'd never agree unless they put you in your place first." The final piece clicked into place. "Stay with me? Why?" "Charles's company, there were some complications." "We're just restructuring," she said, avoiding my eyes. Before I could process this, my father appeared. "Rebecca, this is nonsense. Your sister needs your support. As family, you are obligated to provide it. My two-bedroom house that you've always called a charming little hovel is suddenly acceptable for Cassandra and her family?" I asked, the absurdity washing over me. "It's temporary. Just until we sort out some liquidity issues," my father snapped. "Your sister has certain standards. And my children? What are their standards worth?" My mother now joined the fray. "You're being selfish, Rebecca. Your sister is in a precarious situation." Mia and Noah returned with their jackets, pressing close to me. I put my arms around them. "We are leaving now. If you want to discuss this, you can call me tomorrow and ask me properly, with the respect you'd give a stranger." Cassandra scoffed. "She's really leaving. I told you she's become hard since Daniel died." As we turned to go, my father issued his final threat. "If you walk out that door, do not expect a single dime from us ever again. Family loyalty isn't something you can just discard when it's inconvenient." I paused at the threshold and looked back at the three of them, united in their entitlement. "I have never received your help when I truly needed it. Not when Daniel died. Not when I needed help with the mortgage. Not when Noah needed braces. What I have received is a lifetime of judgment. That ends tonight." I led my children to the car, their questions peppering the air. "Are we in trouble, Mom?" Noah asked, his voice small. "No, sweetheart," I said, buckling him in. "I think we're finally free." As we drove away from the estate, a strange lightness filled me. On a whim, I made a decision. "How would you feel about dinner at that new Italian place? The one with the glowing reviews?" Their cheers were all the answer I needed. The restaurant, Bella Sera, was everything our family dinner wasn't: warm, inviting, and filled with the happy chatter of families. The hostess seated us without a hint of judgment about our casual clothes. As we looked over menus where a single pasta dish cost more than our usual weekly pizza night, Mia looked worried. "Mom, can we afford this?" "Tonight, we're not thinking about afford," I said, feeling a surge of defiance. "Tonight, we're thinking about our worth." We ordered calamari, garlic bread, fettuccine alfredo for Mia, a massive steak for Noah, and lasagna for me. As we ate, laughing and talking without fear of judgment, I realized I had never truly stood up for them before. I had taught them to endure toxicity in the name of family. Excusing myself to the restroom, I made a call I should have made years ago to my godmother, Eleanor, my mother's estranged sister. "Rebecca, my dear. To what do I owe this pleasure?" her warm voice answered. The whole story came pouring out. The takeout order, the scraps, the financial troubles, everything. Eleanor sighed. "I've been waiting for this call. I knew your mother's favoritism would come to a head eventually." She then revealed the truth: my father's firm was teetering on bankruptcy after a series of bad investments. The estate was mortgaged to the hilt. Cassandra's husband hadn't just hit a rough patch, he had drained their accounts and left her. They were broke. They needed your life insurance money, Rebecca. The money from Daniel that you so wisely invested. They've been counting on accessing it through guilt and obligation. She offered me a lifeline then and there. I'm not waiting until I die to give you your inheritance. I'm setting up a trust for you and the children tomorrow. When I returned to the table, my phone was buzzing incessantly, 27 missed calls and 43 texts ranging from fury to desperation to pleading. I silenced it. The drama could wait. The next morning, with my godmother and her lawyer present, the full truth emerged. Their empire was a facade. The takeout dinner was because they could no longer afford their chef. The demand for me to house Cassandra was a desperate attempt to maintain their illusion. When my family showed up at my door, disheveled and panicked, I laid down my boundaries. I offered temporary help, but on my terms: financial transparency, therapy, and absolute respect. 6 months later, my parents live in a comfortable condo. Cassandra got a job, a real one, and discovered she actually enjoys working. With my godmother's support, I bought a lovely home for me and my children. We have a garden. We order takeout whenever we want. And we never, ever eat anyone's leftovers. The journey isn't perfect, but it's honest. I learned that the highest cost isn't standing up for yourself, it's the silent price you and your children pay for staying silent. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with family? Your story might give someone else the courage to do the same. If you believe everyone deserves a seat at the table, please hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge Dose for more stories where justice is served. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure the lesson is worth learning.